Hey Dom, how are you?
How's it
Hey,
going?
how you doing?
Good, good. I'm sweating.
Right,
But
yeah,
probably.
same over here. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool. I think we can get started. I see more and more people are dropping in, but it's fine. I mean, we're recording anyhow. Yeah, I'm very happy that we're actually back. I think it's the first X Space we're hosting this year. We have taken a look in our history books, right? And I think the last X Space AMA session we had last year, November. So yeah, feels good to be back. And also, the good news is that we're basically, yeah, we've decided that we want to host these community AMA sessions on a regular basis again. So once every quarter. So I assume many will be happy about that. And yeah, the idea is just to keep everyone up to date on the latest developments across IOTA, Twin, and yeah, the broader trade and supply chain ecosystem, right? And we want to give you the opportunity to basically ask questions. With that said, I don't think there's a lot more to cover from my side. Dom, do you want to share something else, or should we jump into the main part, which is like the questions?
Yeah, maybe I can just give a little intro and
Oh,
some
sure,
thoughts from myself
absolutely.
as well. Obviously, it's really great to see all of you here and to have this with the community. I told to Rick and to Stefan to give me all the hardest, the most controversial questions because I think the
Yes.
only way to do this is to be direct and open and to actually answer all the painful questions that many in the community have, rightfully so, right? Because I think we're in a very unprecedented time in the entire crypto space, and I think oftentimes it is easy to single out IOTA and say, hey, like this is shit. Hey, 10 years and it's time to finally prove yourself, yada, yada. But I think if you look at the delivery and what we have worked on over the last couple of years, I do believe that what we have delivered is pretty amazing, right? Especially with the layer one, with Rebase, how we have transformed IOTA from something that had no smart contracts, had a different vision, right, for the future, and had a different, yeah, technology stack altogether to something that is actually useful, right? Because if you guys
Mhm.
remember, like in the old days, we always had the coordinator that we worried about and the network going down and all these crazy times with reattaching your transaction and all of that kind of stuff. So
Oh, yeah.
I really feel like as a technology stack, IOTA is really in the best state that it's ever been, right? It just works. And that in and of itself is a huge achievement that you can just transfer around value around the world almost instantly at almost no fees. You can stake your tokens, right? The network is fully decentralized, which was the biggest promise that we have made since the inception of IOTA, right? To remove the coordinator. It's fully decentralized. We have a lot of validators. Everybody with their tokens can actually stake and secure the network. So that's quite beautiful. And I think also on the business side, of course, we have really been focused on finding our vertical because the biggest shift that the entire crypto space has been going through over the last 12 months is just that we have completely erased any kind of speculative gain that or any kind of speculative value that the market has had. And we've gone the completely opposite direction where it is all about having real tangible businesses underlying underneath or supporting the token, right? Either with token buybacks or even with dividend distributions, right? But just having a real business attached to the token, because otherwise all tokens are being seen as worthless and are being compared to meme coins. And that's sort of like where the pendulum has swung over the last 12 months. And so I think people also have to understand, like especially for operators in the space like ourselves, it is always incredibly difficult because I think every month over the last 12 months has been worse and worse, right? Like every month it's gotten worse gradually, and where it is a time when we thought, hey, IOTA would never reach 10 cents, for example, right?
Mm.
And gradually it just got worse, and it is a very challenging environment to navigate because all your assumptions are being proven wrong in that sense, and you just need to face a new reality and operate with that. And so I can fully understand the token holders that believe in the vision and believe in the team and believe in me as well, right? And ultimately, the only thing that we can do right now is to ensure that we continue to operate and continue to realize this vision that we set forth, right? And if you guys remember this manifesto that I wrote a couple of months ago, that is still 100% true, right? Bringing trade and trade finance and tokenizing real world assets on top of IOTA. So that's still what we're working on, realizing that vision. And so all that we can do right now is to really move forward in making sure that this is the IOTA that we're building and that we're making this future reality. And with that, hopefully survive this severe bear market. Also for me personally, right? Like I've been part of every bear and bull market in crypto. I remember the first one in 2014 or whatever when I lost all my money, uh, which was obviously very painful. And since then, obviously, like we survived through everyone. I always assumed that 2018 was the most difficult one, but I can tell you that this has really been the most difficult one because crypto is being challenged in all the directions, right? You can say that institutional adoption is at an all-time high, but when it comes to real conviction in crypto as an asset class, I think many of the OGs have left, but so many of my friends that I know since the old days have also just left the space, have sold all their assets, and kind of wanted to disappear simply because trust has been broken, right? VC coins, meme coins, whatever happened on 1010 when there was like billions of dollars in forced liquidations, the lack of real adoption, just like this constant speculative game without any real world traction, all of that stuff has really just eroded trust. And of course, um, it really meant that crypto as an asset class is probably one of the least attractive ones right now, simply because everyone is chasing stock market, everybody's chasing the AI bubble, right? Investing into AI
Right.
companies. And so that's the simple reality that we're in right now. And so none of that is like super related to IOTA itself. And of course, it's related to the macro environment. And so I would say, like, even with the most amazing announcement that we would have right now, it wouldn't move the needle, because the macro environment is still incredibly challenging for crypto as an asset class. I do think that this is a time of opportunity as well, right? And where you can really shine, where you can really move forward and differentiate yourself. So I do think that these are the times when looking back in the future, the winners in this market are going to be defined. So there's a consolidation happening. There's projects also just simply falling off, right? And so that's just what's happening right now. So I'm really looking forward to go through the questions together with you guys and see what people ask. But I think this is still like a simple state of mind for myself right now and how I see things. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dom. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, agree. Let's jump into actually the main part of this session, which is your questions, like the community questions. And just yeah, a quick note on the format and also for transparency. I think we received more than 200 questions from the community, so thanks for that. And we reviewed all of them, and we kind of grouped similar topics together, and we selected the questions that really came up most frequently. And this resulted in, I think, 15 plus questions that we'll be covering today. And yeah, also, as Dom mentioned, we didn't just pick the easy ones, but we really included the topics that you have been asking about the most. Yeah, and one last thing I might have mentioned earlier, we're recording the space. So yeah, if you have to leave early, it's not a problem at all. You can just rejoin and re-listen later on. And with that, yeah, let's jump straight into the first question, Dom. Are you concerned about the price of IOTA after new all-time lows? What gives you conviction that the market is mispricing IOTA?
As I just said, right, like I think the entire crypto market has been through a severe bear market that it is the worst market ever, right? And people have just completely lost trust in crypto, especially altcoins, right? And obviously IOTA is one of those. Altcoins were not one of the majors, and so this is why we are obviously being all the speculative air has been completely removed out of the market, and everybody's just, I don't know, you can say even fairly pricing some of these projects. I think IOTA is. obviously at an all-time low where it is kind of ridiculous. But there's no point being emotional about it. I think the only thing that we can do is to come up with certain plans on how to, yeah, figure out how we work our way back up, right? Because the token price is important, and for one, for the security and the decentralization of the network, is also obviously important for the perception of IOTA. And so I do think at the bare minimum, it's important that we climb back into the top 100 in coin market cap rankings, right?
Mhm.
And prove ourselves there. And so the main thing that we really focus on there is just really moving forward with this business that we're building around Twin, right? So over the last couple of months, what we've been really focused on is building what we call the Twin Cloud, which is this commercial enterprise ready product to onboard traders and freight forwarders onto Twin so that they can then start using Twin in production, because so far Twin was mainly about pilots, right, shipping around these consignments cross border. And now we've been building this commercial product so we can then actually go to market and actually scale this up so that we see a lot more adoption happening on mainnet. We've also been working on Trade Dollar, right, which is this trade finance platform where investors can actually fund trade finance transactions. So what we've been really focused on there is actually working with institutional investors to close the funding gap so that they will be the first capital to come in. So that has been something that actually dragged on for a little bit longer than expected, but that's still like the seed capital that we want to ensure before we actually announce the trade dollar to the world, and then also open it up, for example, to the community to invest into that. So I think the most important thing for us to do right now is just to build the real business and then attach that to IOTA, right, so that the IOTA also benefits from this adoption. I do want to be very honest with people as well, right? Sometimes there are situations where you cannot do anything. And it's important not to overreact, and it's important not to, yeah, make bad, hasty, rushed decisions. And I think the last couple of months was one of these environments where there simply wasn't anything, right? Like I sometimes hear the community saying, hey, we need more marketing, we need more announcements. And I can tell you, no announcement in the world would have changed anything with how the token has performed, simply because these are larger forces at play. And it wouldn't have made any sense for us to try and make a big push in this market, simply because crypto as an asset class has simply, lost favor, and we just needed to move forward. So to answer the question, of course, low token price is really bad, and of course, this is something that we need to fix. And I don't know when the time is right for it, right? Because of course, it depends on the broader market.
Mhm.
But this is something that we are obviously working every day on, by building up a real business with Twin and making sure that it happens on chain on IOTA.
Right. Thanks, Dom. Moving on, second question. What is the concrete mechanism, fee burns, buybacks, staking demand, that links Twin and Adapt usage to actual IOTA token demand, rather than the two evolving independently? Also, can you quantify it?
So it's very important, first of all, that Twin evolves as an independent commercial offering, because ultimately Twin is going to be a cloud platform where big companies are going to pay a SaaS subscription fee, or they're going to pay a per transaction fee where they pay in fiat, in cash. Of course, we abstract away the complexity of all the stuff that happens on chain, but Twin is a business, right? Because like there's companies that you need to sign SLAs with, that you need to sign contracts with. And it's not that we can just tell a company, hey, you can just go on chain and do your stuff on IOTA. No, you actually need to have a company behind it. And this is exactly what Twin is going to be, a company that actually offers this commercial offering around Twin. And obviously, the commercial product itself is built on top of IOTA. And so, if you guys remember the manifesto, I clearly laid out there that Twin is really about pushing transaction volume onto the IOTA mainnet, and the IOTA mainnet will then charge those fees for for these certain business use cases and products. So effectively, Twin is paying IOTA to use the infrastructure, right? So this is really the most important one. And the second one is really around tokenization of real world assets. And so that's really what we're doing there, to bring those assets on chain, and starting with Trade Dollar, and then doing other business in the future. It's hard to quantify. I try to quantify it in the manifesto as well. Um, but um, but of course, we just need to see more volume happening for this to really be much more quantifiable. I do think in the future we can even think about making certain changes in terms of the economics, right? Like for example, changing fees, doing more fee sharing between Twin and Iota. But I can tell you, like, we're not there yet. Right now, the most important thing is to build the business, right? And the business needs to be built on Twin first, right? Getting those customers on board that are actually paying and that actually find Twin really useful as a commercial offering, and then later on tying that to Iota.
All
And
right.
by the way, I think it's very important for people to also realize the following, right? Like the thesis around layer one blockchains, where it was about permissionless networks, and a general purpose adoption, that thesis has died, right? And this is why I always find it a little, yeah, like it's not fully justified just to say, hey, IOTA is dead. I can tell you all general purpose blockchains, they are facing the exact same problem right now, where it is about, hey, what application, what use case do we have so we can focus on this vertical integration? And so every major layer one blockchain, other than maybe Ethereum, is having the exact same existential crisis right now, where it is about figuring out which vertical application they should focus on for their underlying blockchain and the token to be a success. And this is exactly where IOTA has that focus with trade, cross-border trade and payments, and this is exactly where we are building that business and then tying that business to the network. Right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next one is multiple questions in one. What is the current monthly burn rate and runway? What revenue exists beyond selling IOTA? And how many FTEs are left across the company?
Yeah. And so of course it is our fiduciary duty, right, as board members of IOTA to make sure that we ensure guarantee the runway and ensure the continued operation of the network. And so it's very critical for us to continue to innovate on the layer one because there is a lot of work and amazing talent there, I would say. And over the last couple of months, what we have done is to sort of consolidate the foundation because previously Twin was a separate team. So it was sort of like its own startup within Yoast Foundation. So it had a lot of the functions in like duplicated, right? When it comes to like front end developers, designers, product managers, and so on and so forth. And so what we've done over the last 3-4 months is we consolidate a lot of this into one team, right? Effectively consolidate the Iota Foundation and the team there and the Twin team. There's just one team focused on Twin that is also obviously building the underlying layer one. But with that, we had a lot of additional functions in the team, right? Additional team members that weren't really necessary anymore. So in total, we've had to let go of around 25% of the total team, right? And so I think at the moment we're at around 85 to 90 people in the foundation, in the group of foundations, right? Because we also have the Swiss entity, we also have the UAE entity, but I always just call it foundation. And so this is the current structure there. We've also been reducing the burn rate when it comes to grants and integrations and all of that stuff. And so at the moment, it's obviously like more than 2 years runway. So we are fine in that regard. And we obviously continue to be very careful with what we're doing and how we're spending the money. We're also working on some plans on how to create additional revenue, right? And we are getting revenues from some of these engagements, like for example in Kenya, we're getting funding from Trademark Africa. There's also other funding coming in from some of these government engagements that we have. And so it's not going to be able to fully cover the operational costs, right? And but it is reasonable. It is large enough to cover some teams, right? And so that's already good. So it's really mainly about financing the core R&D and some other functions around Twin. Like for example, building the commercial product in Twin right now, which is obviously the key focus. And I would say where we want to head towards is that the team is largely going to be funded through the commercial product of Twin, right? So Twin primarily focusing on data, digitization, trade digitization, but then also trade finance origination, right? Effectively what Salas has been doing, but doing it for more commodities. And then with that, being able to fully finance and support the team so that we're not dependent on any token treasury, where we can really fully remove that. And so this is why I mentioned to you guys, right? Like the main priority for this entire year has been and will be to commercialize this Twin product. We're already in a good state there. I think it's around 2 or 3 months away to be able to onboard the first clients. We already like getting feedback from them. But it will be the most important part, right? So that we're fully sustainable and not dependent on any token or anything like that. Yeah. Stefan?
Yes, thanks. Still have been on mute. Right, next one is how much of the whole IOTA narrative rests exclusively on Africa? What is the actual current status of Kenya, Morocco, and Nigeria under ADAPT? Real mainnet usage or still micropilots? And what's the realistic timeline to sustain daily transactions?
Yeah. So Kenya is the one that is most advanced, right? And so we basically handed over the project and it is all built, it all runs. The problem is always whenever you work with governments, it's based on government timelines, right? So we initially had hoped for end of Q1, then end of Q2 to actually roll it out. Now it's looking more like it will happen over the next couple of months, but because there's also a commercial agreement that needs to be done, we need to be registered as a data provider, we need to get certification, like all this boring stuff that you need to do in order to sell enterprise software. And so that is all largely done, but we still need to finalize the agreements with the government in terms of how much we can charge per trade corridor, how much we can charge per data digitization, or trade document. And so that's expected to happen over the next couple of weeks to months, right? And then once that is in place, then we can really roll this out. And then IOTA, i.e. Twin, will finally run in production in Kenya. So that is the most important project that we have right now to really prove that Twin can run in production in a trade corridor. And we obviously have ADAPT as well. With ADAPT, we're closely reviewing the next countries that we want to do. Initially was potentially Morocco, but that just proved to be really slow. So I think right now it's really going to be Nigeria and Kenya first and foremost. That again is a very political project and it's just very slow moving as well, which is always with these government engagements. But then if they do work, it obviously means that you have a much more guaranteed throughput. So I think with ADAPT, I would say that our focus will be that by the end of the year, we'll start seeing the first first transactions. Right now, what I can tell everybody is that for us to build this commercial business and with Twin on top of IOTA, trade finance is really the one of the main focus areas because we see a lot more opportunity in trade finance because that also uses stablecoins on chain on IOTA, right, to do the cross-border payments. That also is a source of yield, attractive yield at that. And so this is why at the moment we're really focused on setting up this trade finance business. So we are now starting the first pilot. Obviously, Salas has been operating on the Iota mainnet for the last couple of months, and you can see the mainnet transactions there. And that is also for critical minerals. And what Salas has really been focused on is raising more capital from private credit funds because capital to deploy into trade finance transactions is the main limit to growth. And so this is why they've invested the last couple of months to really like meet up with all these different funds. And so they're close to actually closing a larger funding round, which will then also enable them to start deploying more capital on chain so they can scale more. And what we're doing, we're doing the equivalent of Salas, but for other commodities. So right now we are setting up a pilot of the first traders of coffee and of avocado between Kenya and the UK. And this is where we're then also building the Twin product around that use case. to then effectively also launch that as a product. And so I would say that before the end of the year, we really want to have these pilots completed, have the products built, right? The commercial offering of Twin, the cloud platform, the commercial offering of Twin for trade finance, and the commercial offering of Trade Dollar to actually, do the fundraising with that, scale fundraising with that, and move that forward. I think in terms of on-chain transactions, over the next couple of months, you will start seeing it scale up, but it's not going to reach the millions of transactions that people are expecting to happen. This simply takes time, right? And for us, it was more important right now to build a commercial product with Twin rather than try and prove that we have transactions here and there, right? Because without a commercial product, we can't commercialize Twin and we can't generate revenues. And for us, generating revenues is the most important thing right now.
Right. Next one, I think you might have already given an answer or at least a hint, but yeah, I'm still reading out the question. Can you give one concrete example of an external business paying to use Twin, settling on mainnet, where that directly drove market purchase of IOTA?
I think the most important one is first of all Stylus, right? Where Stylus actually tokenize the physical goods on chain, and so Stylus actually had to buy IOTA tokens to then be able to tokenize these assets. And I think in total they've done around 30 or 40 cargoes over the last couple of months, and with a couple million in funding. And that is obviously where they needed to pay IOTA fees to tokenize these assets. The other one is also something called the Virtual Watchtower, which has also been working on the IOTA mainnet. And this is like a consortium that we joined. They've also been digitizing trade documents and issuing digital identities on the mainnet. And that's been moving forward there. I do think that the way that this is going to move forward is that it's not going to be that you go to a company and say, hey, company Y, you're going to buy IOTA tokens in order to be able to transact on the network. Much rather, it will be a commercial platform like, for example, the Twin Cloud, where a company will sign up, they just enter their credit card, and then they can start trading and digitizing their transactions, tokenizing physical assets, whatever, right? And then the Twin Cloud would be the one to purchase the IOTA tokens in the background to actually pay for their transaction fees. So I think people also need to change their perception of how this is going to work in the future, where it will much rather be aggregated and abstracted away through Stylus, through the Twin Cloud, through Twin Finance, rather than big companies announcing that they're going to now to buy X amount of IOTA tokens. Right? Like that, that's just not how it's going to work.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Next one. Again, two questions in one. Will there be a fee for states, logistics companies, and service providers to use the Twin network? And how is revenue split between the IOTA Foundation, affiliated entities, and other rights holders? And are those terms negotiated already or still open?
So some of it is still in the open, right? Because there's still like agreements that need to be made and things that needs to be aligned on. But obviously, Twin is fully built on top of IOTA, and the Twin network is effectively IOTA, right? They're just a set of smart contracts built on top of IOTA, and the commercial entity will always be a subsidiary of either TEA or the UAE entity. Most likely will be the Swiss entity. And with that, obviously, the company will operate like that, right? I don't know if that answered the question because there was like multiple questions in one. Did I miss
Right.
something?
No, I think so. I mean, from my point of view, I think it does. If not, I mean, happy for people to submit any follow-on questions,
Yeah.
right? And we can maybe take a look at them on Telegram or Discord later. But no, I think that's fine. Let me move on. MoveVM competitors like Sui and Aptos have more TVL and bigger partners, and past trade platforms like TradeLens shut down despite similar institutional backing. So, what's the concrete reason Twin doesn't follow the same path?
I think that's a very good question, right? And it is definitely something that we're looking at closely because we need to be fully aware that Twin will only succeed if it is a commercial success and not a government success in that sense. Right? Like what I mean with that is like we're going to succeed with Twin by building a product that has an underlying business that creates real value for its customers, right? And so that obviously means that we need to charge them fees to digitize their documents, to tokenize their assets, and also get trade finance. And so over the last couple of months, one of the major things that we have been really working on is to transform Twin from something that is just primarily a public goods infrastructure to something that is actually a commercial product, right? And so this is why this is where I'm referring to this Twin Cloud, where we've been defining what this commercial offering can look like, so that freight forwarders and traders actually pay this commercial entity either to digitize their trade documents when it comes to a certain trade corridor, right, whether it's the UK or whether it's Kenya, or where they are also paying to get access to trade finance. And so this is the primary objective with Twin right now. Is not just some like open source product, but it needs to be a commercial product, a commercial company, right? And so that's the main thing that we have been doing the last couple of months, transforming Twin basically into a commercial entity, into a commercial product. And so that's going to
Yeah.
be the main focus. Launching.
Right. Let me add a follow-up question, just because I also mentioned Sui and Aptos and them having more
Yep.
TVL. Is Twin intended to remain permanently built on IOTA, or could it eventually operate on its own network, or even migrate to another layer one blockchain?
I mean, there's no point to move Twin to another blockchain, right? Because IOTA offers everything that Twin needs. And like, if you, for example, speak with the founders of Solus, right, where we obviously made an investment, they said that it was simply amazing to build their application on top of IOTA, because it was so seamless to tokenize the assets, and all the building blocks are there, and so it just works, right? And right now we're not solving for layer one issues, right? Because IOTA offers enough liquidity, it offers all the bridges, it offers all the speed and scalability that is needed for Twin to succeed as a commercial product. And I think that's definitely something that is important to keep in mind, that Twin as a business will remain and is obviously primarily going to be built on top of IOTA. And one thing that I am personally super excited about is really everything around chain abstraction, because one of the major bottlenecks that we obviously have on IOTA is the access to stablecoins. So there's still progress being made with some stablecoin providers, but it's simply not enough to convince all the liquidity to move over. And so what we can then do with chain abstraction is actually make it possible for users, right, users on Twin, to have stablecoin wallets on other networks, and then just use those networks to transfer around money for their cross-border payments. What this avoids is that a trader needs to, I don't know, deposit USDT or USDC on IOTA, right? Because that always includes bridging, that includes more fees, that includes more integration fees, like getting Circle and so on and so forth to integrate natively with IOTA. And so I think chain abstraction is really something that is going to unlock a lot more seamless usability of Twin, but it still means that the core application, the core tokenization of assets and things like that will happen on the IOTA networks. This is not something we're building right now, right? But I think this is definitely something that's going to come up in the future, so that we enable stablecoin payments on other networks to be done through IOTA as well.
Yeah. Dom, since you mentioned the stable coins, I think I have a great follow-up question here. What's the actual current status of USDT Zero and Trade Dollar? Is there a launch date, and are there regulatory complications? Why is Trade Dollar running on Ethereum and not IOTA?
So stablecoins are still coming. So that's still something that we're working on. Obviously, USDT Zero would be our preferred option, simply because they are one of the most competent teams in the space. And I think USDT also serves a crucial role as the pioneer in stablecoins. So this is still something that is being worked on. I don't have a quick timeline right now when it will go live, but we're still in touch with the various teams there. There's also VUSD on IOTA. I don't know how much is actually being used, but could be used, I guess. Trade Dollar obviously runs on IOTA. It tokenizes the assets, but in order to launch Trade Dollar quickly, I think the decision was made that the initial vault is going to launch on Ethereum. so that investors can easily deploy their USDT or USDC on there, simply because it's the fastest way to bootstrap the business and then actually deploy it through Twin and deploy it through Salas. So I think it's really about going where the liquidity is instead of forcing the liquidity to come over, right? Because we don't have stablecoin integrated, we don't have other necessary infrastructure integrated. And for example, building these custom smart contracts for vaults is very tricky. And I don't know if people have seen it, but there has been a severe erosion of trust when it comes to DeFi over the last couple of months, where investors really pulled out a lot of money out of some of these vaults, and simply because they don't trust them, because they think there might be security issues. And so I think it was very important for Trade Dollar to actually go with the most trusted solution, most vetted solution that is out there in terms of smart contracts, right? So that there's minimal risk for liquidity providers and going into this. And so also to remove entry barriers, right? Because ultimately this is about succeeding as a business and not being stringent that everything needs to happen on just one network.
Thank you. Switching topics, why was IOTA delisted from Bullish after only 5 months and removed from Kraken's listing map after being added? What happened and what's missing for a tier one listing like Coinbase?
So Kraken, they wanted to only list, I think the BP20 or whatever, like the Binance version. And we just simply said that we would only accept them listing the layer one. Obviously, there are certain terms to list the layer one, including a large marketing spend and things like that. And so, like considering how the market went, we simply postponed that. So I do think that Kraken is something that we can definitely do in the future as well. And those we really love Kraken as an exchange and as a product, but it's simply not the priority right now. Bullish as an exchange is really primarily, yeah, US institutional, and we just didn't really feel like it gave us the necessary growth or the necessary access that we needed. And so this is why we also canceled the agreement with them, and which in turn led to them delisting. I don't think there's any hard feelings. I think this is just like how it goes in this space. And
Yeah.
we need to focus on what we have right now. And obviously we are listed on all the biggest exchanges. And that's all that matters for us at the moment.
All right. Next one, again, I think you might have already given an answer, but I'll read it out. When do we see a meaningful, sustained increase in TPS? And can you commit to a stable throughput without system transactions padding the number?
Sustained throughput, I think it will really depend on real businesses, right? Like Twin delivering that, because otherwise it's always just speculative driven, and it just doesn't really help, right? Because yeah, speculation has died
Hmm.
effectively, unless you launch some new meme coins, and then also the question is like, hey, what's the point of that? Like we saw with the recent Robinhood chain, and how sustainable that is. I can't give concrete numbers, right? I can't give concrete timelines. All I can tell people is that we are working on connecting these trade corridors in UK, in Africa, in Southeast Asia. All I can tell people is that we're working on trade finance as our primary priority at the moment as well. And so we'll have to see how that goes, and how quickly we can get that option onto the mainnet from those businesses. But obviously, Twin runs 100% on Iota, right? So all these transactions are recorded there. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Next one on the financial situation. Beyond selling IOTA, is the foundation exploring other financial instruments, collateralized lending against IOTA bonds or convertibles, listed holding vehicle, or covered call writing for yield to reduce reliance on token sales?
I mean, the main thing that we've done is obviously reduce the burn rate, right, which was really critical. So I think we're in a much more reasonable spot right now. And I think we're also very clearly focused on delivering Twin as a business. So I think that was really critical, nailing it down like that, so to say. And so we removed a lot of the excesses, right, that didn't make sense. Um, I do think that one thing that could be on the table in the future is potentially even raising capital. For example, raising capital with Twin, right, as a for-profit company. Um, and so, like, that's That's something that is on the table, right? Which would then in turn also mean that we either completely or largely reduce the burn rate or the requirement for tokens to fund the entire operation. And that's really, I would say, the main one of the main things that we're looking at right now. I think doing these collateralized loans and things like that, it is possible, but the market is just so uncertain that it just makes it really, really difficult to know how to navigate this. Right. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Next one. That's a special question. Has IOTA's market maker ever been audited? And is the foundation aware of community documented concerns about downward price manipulation?
I haven't seen any community concerns. Like, I don't know if there's anything that can be shared. I would be interested to look at for sure. Um, we have full oversight of what the market makers do as well, and we also investigate what they're doing, and we also had like a special tool for that. Um, so yeah, but if somebody can share the document with me, I would love to take a look at that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if there's a report or any screenshots or something you have, just drop them on Telegram or Discord, and feel free to ping us, and we'll definitely take a look at that, and yeah,
Yeah.
we'll follow up. All right, quickly moving on. Can we expect a realistic, publicly accessible roadmap again at some point? And when can the average retail investor expect deeper transparency?
Shoot me. No, we'll never do another roadmap. Honestly, like I fully understand why people want to see that, but um, it's just incredibly difficult as a team to navigate like something like that because I think people have to understand, right? Like ultimately, IOTA is a startup, right? And as a startup, you need to move fast, you need to break things, you need to be willing to go against what you have said publicly just to survive, right? Just to make sure that you can move forward. I really believe that in this space, only people that kind of humble themselves and are not going with what they have proclaimed since forever are willing to move forward because nobody knows what the future looks like, right? Like everything changes all the fucking time. And this is the most uncertain environment to operate in, right? And that's just the nature of the crypto space, right? Like everything is a startup in this space and everything can change from one day after another. And it's just really, really important that the team, the operators, has that flexibility to actually make these decisions, right? And so transparency is really important. Right? I'm very happy to do these AMAs and give people insights.
Hmm.
Ultimately, people need to trust me and need to trust the team that we have the best interest of IOTA in mind and are the best operators. Because if that trust is broken, it doesn't make sense to begin with, right? And so no roadmap, no transparency, whatever else is going to fix that, right? So that's the most important thing to begin with. But yeah, ultimately, we need to make sure that we can make the right decisions for the project, right? And so it's just not possible to have a roadmap because then it will be scrutinized. People will hold things against us and be like, "Oh, you said this and that," and then it just really means that we can't move forward ultimately and make the best decisions.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, people can be ensure that we have internal roadmaps, right? So it's not like we are clueless, but just yeah, sharing them publicly out there in the wild. Yeah, as you mentioned, Tom,
yeah,
isn't the best.
yeah.
Right. Two more questions on the list. A lot of long-term holders feel they lost trust over what happened with Shimmer. Looking back, was compensation for holders ever considered? And what do you think the foundation could have handled differently?
So Shimmer, like I think people misunderstand some things, right? None of this is anything about guaranteed return on investment or guaranteed savings or things like that, right? Everything is fast paced, everything is changing all the time. And Shimmer was always positioned as something that is going to help IOTA accelerate its technology roadmap, right? And so Shimmer was really initially launched for, I think it was for Stardust, from what I remember, and then later for the Shimmer EVM, so we can get all of that onto the IOTA mainnet more quickly. And initially, we also assumed that we need Shimmer in order to launch Corticide, right? So that we actually have something like Kusama and Polkadot. And so I think in that regard, Shimmer served its role. obviously as a token it has failed, and it really failed because there was no exchange listings and there was no liquidity and there was no investors buying into it. And so that was obviously quite challenging to navigate. But ultimately this is a token project, right? And there's millions of tokens out there that have failed, and that's just the simple nature of this game. And that's what people sign up for as well when they're part of this space, right? Because otherwise they should just have uh, a savings account somewhere and just do it like that.
Mm, right. Um, yeah, let's see. One more question on the list here. After almost 10 years, are you satisfied with where Iota is? What would you have done differently? And is there any decision you regret?
Um, you know, with 2020 hindsight, I could always say we could have made things very differently, because if you look at Iota was the big winner of the 2017 hype cycle, right? Like Iota is a reason why many people have joined the crypto space as well. And like whenever I introduce myself and tell people, hey, I'm from Iota, they were like, oh, like that was my first investment in crypto. And
Mm,
people have very really high hopes and high like good feelings about it, largely, right? And the thing about the way that crypto works is a very cyclical game, right? And so even though we were the big winners of the 2017 cycle, it just made it really, really impossible for us to be repeatedly relevant in other cycles, right? And because of different technology decisions, because of different adoption decisions, and all of that. And so this is why gradually IOTA obviously had a different focus and a different relevance in the market. And as the cycles got shorter, right, ICO, we went from OG projects like IOTA to ICOs to DeFi to NFTs to meme coins to AI coins, and just crypto completely collapsing if you think about it. And so these were the different cycles that all of us went through. And that's just how it went, right? And so, of course, with 2020 hindsight, I would have figured out how to navigate every cycle and prepare us for that. And then in the end, build this more, build it even bigger. But it's just not possible to do that, right? And ultimately, all I can tell people is that we always build with the right intentions in mind, which is to build something that actually matters in the real world. And so I do think with what we have with Twin and what we have achieved over the last couple of years, that we have built something that is relevant in the real world and is actually changing people's lives, right? Also in a small scale right now with Twin in Africa. But I really believe that this is something that we can scale up relatively quickly once it's live. And so I think overall, I'm really happy that we actually have this opportunity right now. I'm also really happy that we have never sold ourselves and chased the hype cycles and just disappeared, right? Because many of our competitors, they just disappeared and they made their money and then they just left the community and everybody else behind. And I think after 10 years, I'm still here standing, right, and still building, and the team is still building. I think that's something that people also need to realize and respect as well, because they could have just hired like a professional CEO and used that as a scapegoat and then disappear over the next 2 or 3 years. But we always deliberately chose the hard path, which was to actually build something meaningful. I think that is what IOTA really stands for. And sure, the token hasn't performed that well, and like, this is really the biggest regret, I would say. But those are also things that are outside of our control, and all I can focus on right now is to build a real business on top of IOTA and make sure that IOTA continues to survive and continues to succeed after that.
yeah, thank you, Dom. Let me see. Probably that brings us to the end of today's AMA. First of all, big thanks to everyone who joined us today and also everyone who submitted questions in advance. I know we couldn't answer like every single one, so again, feel free to share more questions over Discord and Telegram over the coming days. We'll definitely take a look, and yeah, as mentioned earlier, we'll make sure to have these sessions now more regularly, like quarterly. And yeah, also Dom, special thanks to you for taking the time to answer the questions openly and yeah, sharing an update where we're kind of heading.
Yeah, No, thank you, and thank you all for coming. I hope that we answered all and grouped them together and answered the most difficult questions, obviously. And because, like, I can fully understand people and don't understand the frustration. At the same time, it's not just that I can just announce something tomorrow and the price will go up 300% and everything will be glory and we'll all be happy again. This is a structural shift in the market, and this is just something that we need to get out of, right? And the only way to get out of is to be patient and to continue to progress and to build a real business because that's what the market demands, right? And so I can promise people that we at the foundation we are continuing to operate and we are continuing to actually build a real business out of Twin with the Twin Cloud, with Twin Finance, with Thales, with all these other things that we have been working on the last couple of years. And then I think when the time is right, I do think that these things will come back together again, and that IOTA will see its glory days again, and we can move that forward. But all that is important right now is fundamentally focusing on building this real business with Twin, and then later on combining that with IOTA, right? And building all of that on chain, have proof of the transactions that are happening on chain, have proof of the assets that are being tokenized on chain, and then with that also build up trust that IOTA is one of these winners in this market, right? Because we have been building for 10 years, we will continue to build, and I do hope that people see and appreciate that as well, and that we'll be moving forward like that together. And obviously, if you guys have any questions or things like that, I'm always happy to uh, discuss it as well. And maybe we can also do a um, different kind of engagement. Like for example, doing it on Telegram where people ask. I can type quite fast.
Right.
Or
Yeah, let's
even doing
definitely
it live.
explore different ways of
Uh,
engaging, and yeah, absolutely, we should do.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
No, but thank you all.
Yeah, thanks again. Thanks everyone
Thank
for
you,
spending your
Stefan.
time with us today. And yeah, we'll see you at our next community AMA. Yeah, have a great day or evening wherever you are, and
Yeah,
talk to you soon.
thank you
Bye
all. Bye
bye.
bye.